Hello, everyone. My name is Robin Butler, and I'm with NOAA, National Organization of Alternative Housing. And I'm here speaking with Gary Wilkerson. We're going to have a topic today regarding tiny house and the electrical side of that. To tell you a little bit about Gary, he's been in the electrical business 40 plus years. He started out in residential in 1969, moved into commercial residential. Well, started out with residential and then he moved into commercial industrial, and then he's moved into institutional electrical. So he's kind of well-rounded in that realm, doing some work in those areas. But then he moved into teaching, and he's taught electric and HVAC for an associate's degree at a couple of schools, Everest and Southern Technical College. And recently, he's been approved and certified as a FEMA inspector and did some work in Houston with the flooding in South Florida and at the Virgin Islands. And these inspections would be for damage to the infrastructure. So he's got a well-rounded feeling for what the electric and the rest of the house is. And so now we want to talk about tiny house and how the electric works in the tiny house. So tell everybody hi, Gary.
Hi, how you all doing today?
What we're going to be talking a little bit about is a particular part of the National Electric Code, but I wanted to start out with myself anyway, talking about what is a tiny house on wheels. And it's a structure that has at least 70 square feet and no more than 400 square feet on the first floor living space. Lofts are not included in that calculation. It's on a movable foundation, thus house on wheels, and it includes this basic function areas that support normal daily routines such as cooking, sleeping, and toiletry. So how is the National Electric Code organized? You said it had how many chapters?
There's 9 chapters in the National Electrical Code, and there's articles in each chapter, and they relate to a specific installation standard for the subject matter.
Okay, and Article 551 is for recreational vehicles.
Yes, recreational vehicles and recreational vehicle parks.
Okay, and the reason why we use this recreational vehicle Article 551 is because these tiny houses are on wheels, and the closest thing we can find that would fit that would be a recreational vehicle. So that's why we're using.
That is correct.
And the difference between a foundation home and a movable home is that it moves, and so you can't do everything you can do on a foundation home that you can do on a movable home.
Okay.
Yep, that's kind of it. Well, let's jump right into the definitions there, Gary. On Article 551.2, it talks about some definitions, and I just picked a couple of them that maybe would be a little need a little bit more clarification, or something that I didn't quite understand myself, and I needed some clarification on. But the definition of a converter, it says a device that changes electrical energy from one form to another, as from alternating current to direct current. Can you kind of explain what that is?
Well, that's what they're talking about in inverters, and it's actually changing voltage from an AC to a DC, and rectifiers that change from a DC to an AC. So with that being said, you may use that, or you may be using a transformer, and they're just given the definition of what a converter is and how it applies to tiny homes.
Okay, that's good. What's a dead front?
A dead front is something that protects the person from being near or close to energized parts. So if you looked at Article 100 in the definitions of the code book, it talks about a dead front, and the dead front is without live parts being exposed to a person on the operating side of the equipment. So they want to make sure that there's a metal cover in that panel, that when you open the cover, there's still another cover where your hands cannot touch energized parts in the panel. Okay. So there's 2 covers to be removed, the outer cover and then the inner cover.
And when you remove the inner cover, then you can actually get to the wires and the energized parts.
That's when you should de-energize the equipment and open that cover, and then you could do work within the panel.
Okay, good point. De-energize the equipment.
Yes.
In other words, don't be taking that second cover off if it's energized.
Live parts. The outer cover you can open up to reset a breaker or to turn it off or turn it on. But the inner cover, which is called the dead front, is the one that they want to separate you from the live parts, and you should never take that off until the equipment has been de-energized.
Okay, all right. Disconnect means of disconnect.
It's just a way of being able to turn the energy off to the equipment. It has to do with small equipment that's in the tiny home, and it has to do with the service to the tiny house itself.
Okay, all right. How about low voltage? What's considered low voltage?
Low voltage in the code is 600 volts or less.
Is 120 volts low voltage?
No. 120 volts is considered higher voltage because anything that's over 50 volts can cause fibrillation of the heart, which causes a heart attack, and people could die. So they consider low voltage 50 volts or less. But in the definition of the word, when we're looking at voltage like high voltage, 500,000 K, well, then low voltage is 600 volts or less. So that definition gets screwed. So all you need to know is anything 50 volts or less is low voltage. Anything higher than that is considered something that could cause electrocution.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, I'll talk about RV. A recreational vehicle is a vehicular type unit primarily designed as temporary living quarters for recreational camping or travel use, which either has its own motive of power or is mounted on or drawn by another vehicle. And I wanted to delineate the difference between an RV and a PMRV, or a park model RV. And with the park model RV, you have to have a special use permit in order to move it. With an RV, you can move it across the highways without a special use permit. Normally it's 8'6" wide by 13'6" high, and less than 26,000 pounds. Over 26,000 pounds, you have to have a CDL license. Mm-hmm. So an RV site, what would you consider to be an RV site and RV site equipment? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, an RV site, when it comes to parks, where you take a vehicle like the tiny home or an RV vehicle, it's a site that is prepared to connect the utilities to that RV or that tiny home. That's electricity, that's water, and sewer, and sometimes communication.